Today we are going to be talking about ground cover plants for Florida. Whether you're aiming for a lawn conversion or looking to add some ground cover into your food forest, there are lots of reasons to consider planting a ground cover in your landscape. Ground covers are low-growing plants. Some of them may crawl, some of them may clump, but basically you're looking at any sort of plant or vegetation that's around the 2-inch to 18-inch mark. They serve lots of different functions within the landscape, which we'll be talking about in a little bit, as well as 12 of my favorite ground covers that you might consider planting in your own Florida garden. Ground cover plants can serve a lot of different functions within your landscape, and you may be looking for one more than the other, but they are best known usually for choking out weeds. When you have a nice dense ground cover, it's going to eliminate competing weed seeds from accessing light and nutrients and everything else. But they also help with protecting against erosion. In that same vein of thought with water, it can also help retain moisture in the environment. So if you're looking at planting a food forest that you want to be self-maintained and you don't want to have to water on a regular basis, creating a multi-layer planting, including the ground cover on the floor of the food forest, you're going to help to maintain moisture within the system so that you have to water less. So this here is potato mint, and it happens to be an edible ground cover. They will form little roots. This I got pulled up just for you guys, it's a little early. I usually wait until they die back in winter, but they'll form small roots that you can eat just like a potato, which is why they're called potato mint. The leaves and everything are not edible, but they create a really lush, beautiful ground cover. They're very quick to fill in. You can propagate it from cutting so that you can easily fill in an entire area within a very short period of time. And speaking of wildlife habitat, they make a beautiful habitat for things like lacewings, beneficial insects. They do flower with a nice purple flower, nice bloom in the fall and early winter months, which will attract bees and other beneficial insects. And it's just a nice, fast-growing annual ground cover. This here is scorpion tail, and it is a native wildflower or a native plant here to Florida, which in my opinion is a great option if you're looking at things that aren't necessarily edible. So this plant is a nice slow-growing ground cover. It is one that actually can do a little better than most in shade. So this is a good option if you're dealing with like a part shade, not full shade, but part shade environment. And once it's established, it needs no extra irrigation because it's so well suited to growing here in Florida. It's got dainty little white flowers for most of the year, and it's just a really easy, low maintenance ground cover that fills in quite nicely. This little beauty here is Sunshine Mimosa. It is an absolutely wonderful ground cover for here in Florida. It is a nice dense mat, native. It can withstand foot traffic, which a lot of the other ground covers we mentioned in this video cannot take foot traffic. This can take light foot traffic. Now, if you're constantly walking from your kitchen door to the recycling, every single day, it might not hold up to dense foot traffic, but certainly any sort of just moderate rambling through the yard type walking, the Sunshine Mimosa makes a wonderful fit for that. And another awesome thing that separates it from all of the other plants in this video is that it is a nitrogen fixer. So it will actually put nitrogen, aka fertilizer, into the ground for you. So it makes an exceptional ground cover in food forests or really any setting. Nice pretty pink flowers, and the bees absolutely love their blooms. This is wild plumbago, and it is another native ground cover. And this is more of like a sprawling vine. It doesn't get super long or super dense, but it does create a nice solid ground cover, and this is one that can tolerate quite a bit of shade as well. So if you're looking for a nice white flower, native flower, it is completely different from the ornamental plumbagos that you may have seen, they're more of a purplish flower, more upright in structure, totally different plant. This is actually a combination of two of my suggested ground covers. It is a mixture of both creeping sage and native porterweed. Again, just like that plumbago, there is a non-native counterpart, looks just like it, but the non-native porterweed is a very much upright bush-like structure. The native variety is a beautiful sprawling ground cover that has the same flowers as the non-native porterweed. It tends to bloom in spring, and the creeping sage tends to bloom in fall, which makes a great point to mix your ground covers if you want year-round coverage and flowers. This is perennial peanut, or mostly. I again intermixed my ground covers, so this is a mix of sunshine mimosa and perennial peanut, both of which can withstand foot traffic. Now, the perennial peanut tends to favor more sun, and the mimosa can handle a little more shade than the perennial, which is why I blended the two together so that they could find their happy spaces within my little border planting landscape walkway area. We do walk on this on a fairly regular basis every time we get in and out of the car, and it has withstood all four of us getting in and out on a regular basis very well. They have really pretty yellow blooms. These are, again, something that can be so nonchalant or inconspicuous, but as a lawn alternative, both sunshine mimosa and perennial peanut, but they don't need fertilizer, they don't need irrigation, they don't even need you to mow the lawn. This is something that can still please the neighbors and reduce your workload and expense. This is longevity spinach, and it is a popular one for permaculturists and food forest growers here in Florida. It is an edible ground cover. You can harvest the leaves and use them for smoothies, salads, all sorts of leafy green uses. It does have supposed medicinal benefits. It also has had bad rap when people ate, like buckets and buckets and buckets of it every single day. So anything in moderation I think is just fine. But it does create a nice ground cover. It's not super dense, so if you're looking for a carpet, longevity spinach might not be the best option for you, and it does die back in the winter. So even in Central Florida, South Florida it'll go through, but Central Florida and North Florida, this will die back. Now it will come back the following spring and look nice and lush, but you will have that interim to consider. This here is twinflower, hammock twinflower. It is another native species ground cover for here in Florida. And unlike a lot of the other ones that will grow in pretty dense mats once established, the twinflower is very compact and easy to maintain. So if you're looking for just, a little bit of ground cover around the base of a tree or something like that, where you don't really want it to spread and really fill in, the twinflower can be a really nice option for that. The spread is going to be, 18 inches, maybe 2 feet at max when they're really well established. So it's very easy to maintain within a compact space. They have beautiful little purplish blue flowers, and they bloom in the spring. This is sweet potato, and I remember my permaculture mentor telling me she did a lawn conversion and planted the entire front yard in sweet potatoes as a lawn alternative. I thought she was crazy. She showed me the pictures. It looked wonderful. These don't take a lot of foot traffic, so they do have to be in areas where you're not going to be walking on a regular basis. But if you want to get a double whammy, nice ground cover, and food, obviously, for sweet potatoes, it is a great option. They can be perennial in South and Central Florida. North Florida, they will die back in the winter. And they do get a little yellow looking, a little rough looking over the winter months, even in Central and South Florida, but they perk right back up as soon as spring comes. They take no special soil, no extra irrigation. It's a really great choice if you want to be able to get both food and function from your ground cover. Another ground cover that you might consider, which might be often overlooked, is oregano. Just like thyme, you always see the beautiful pathways established with thyme. Oregano tends to grow a little bit better here in Florida, and it makes a really, really lush, gorgeous mounding ground cover. Once it's established, this should take less than 6 months to create like a nice 3-foot patch. So a couple of plants will be a nice border or a nice planting in your landscape. And it's got the bonus of all of the edible and medicinal properties. If you're drying it for oils, people will put it into chicken coops. So all different uses for oregano, and it also makes a lovely little gift drying for stocking stuffers. Oregano also does bloom, which a lot of people don't think about, especially if you're leaving it in for a long time, and they will draw in pollinators and create a nice little habitat for all sorts of little critters and beneficial insects. Our last one of the group is frog fruit. It looks like I'm sitting in a weedy lawn, and it's because I am. Frog fruit is a native ground cover that will easily take over sandlots, unfertilized, unirrigated landscapes, but in my personal opinion, that's a good thing. This is the probably lowest maintenance ground cover out of the group. It literally can take any condition that you give it, and quite honestly, it's probably already in your landscape somewhere without you even realizing it. So definitely something to consider if you're looking for a low maintenance ground cover lawn conversion alternative. Frog fruit is an awesome, awesome ground cover. These 12 ground covers that we covered for here in Florida are not all extensive, it's not all inclusive. There are lots of great ground covers out there. There's beach sunflower and mondo grass and ivy and jasmine. There's lots of different options when you're considering what ground covers to use. These are just some of my favorites that I've really enjoyed the flowers or the utility or function or edibility of. So hopefully this is a starting point for you to get your lawn conversion or your food forest ground covers established. If you want to figure out how to water these for free, make sure to check out this video next.